should be all set now. Yep, you're recording. Okay, Jed, you can take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're meeting here today to discuss the upcoming West Genesee Street Green Corridor project construction. I guess first I'll start by just going over some objectives. We just want to do some introduction to our Save the Rain program for any of you that may not be familiar or know much about it. Just a little bit of background info, and then we'd like to familiarize you with the project itself and what to anticipate in terms of our timeline disruptions and the like, and identify stakeholders, which I guess I can do right now. We're looking at the commercial property holders in the area, otherwise known as Automobile Row. So a lot of car dealerships and several other businesses along the corridor that may be impacted, as well as just the commuting public coming to and from downtown each day. We want to gather some feedback and discuss how we'd like to keep in touch with you as we move forward with the project. So a little background on Save the Rain. It all stems from the infrastructure in Syracuse, which if we could describe with any key adjective, it would be old. So some of these conveyances go back to even the 1800s. Some are even wooden in places. So we're always encountering something new, trying to replace and improve as we go. But doing a wholesale replacement was never going to be an option. Just entirely cost prohibitive. So what makes it a combined sewer system is that we have stormwater and sanitary waste conveyed through the same pipes, which normally isn't a problem when they're just handling sanitary waste. However, when we have wet weather events and the system gets inundated by a lot of stormwater runoff or snow melt or a combination thereof, the system can become overwhelmed. And in those cases, we will see overflows at strategic locations around the city. Generally with outfalls into area creeks, tributaries of Onondaga Lake, which is kind of the main drainage basin around the city of Syracuse. So here you see in this slide a graphical representation of what's happening. Again, on the right, you see dry weather, where it's just the effluent from residential properties, commercial properties, and the like, just contributing their normal waste flow. And then on the right, you see a heavy rainfall event that's filling these same sewers, the combined sewers, with the precipitation as well. And you can see that outfall goes over the regulator structure into what would be assumed to be a local tributary to Onondaga Lake, say Lake Creek or Harbor Brook, any one of those in the metropolitan Syracuse area. Now, we're not alone in this problem. A lot of other older cities, particularly in the Northeast, experience this. But again, changing it from the ground up would be, or from below ground up, from scratch would be, again, profoundly cost prohibitive in the billions and billions. So we're left with, additional treatment capacity and the Save the Rain program, which again we'll get back to in a minute. So I referred to Onondaga Lake and its tributaries as being the receivers of some of these flows, which can and has caused environmental degradation. So the impacts of these overflow events spurred legal action against the county in the 80s, and it resulted in a consent judgment through the courts that established liability for these environmental degradations and put in motion plans to quantify them and develop a framework for fixing them. So the amended consent judgment, which came about a decade further on, further established that framework and added additional infrastructure components or upgrades to existing infrastructure to the plan, and set some target goals. Now, fast forward another decade to the fourth stipulation of the amended consent judgment, enter the Save the Rain program. So in 2009, the fourth stipulation was settled upon, which halted certain gray infrastructure projects that had been planned, regional treatment plants around the city, and authorized the incorporation of green infrastructure. And the goal of this was to approach a fix to these problems that would not only address the environmental impacts, but address the ancillary impacts to the economy in terms of the cost to the taxpayers for these different solutions, as well as the social impact on the communities. For instance, the regional treatment plants, if we could keep them out of people's backyard, so to speak, so much the better, and saving money at the same time. The green infrastructure solution seemed like a great way to go, and the fourth stipulation allowed it and ushered it in. So we have several programs contained within the umbrella of Save the Rain. Some of you may be familiar with the Rain Barrel program that we do. That's a community giveaway program where we educate the community and invite them to help us meet our capture goals. There's also the Green Improvement Fund that, where we collaborate with the local business owners, the private landowner community, to increase our reach and give us additional capabilities that we wouldn't have if we were only focused on public lands, especially given this is an urban environment and a lot of this land that we need to work on these impervious mitigation projects, stormwater mitigation projects, runoff projects. We don't have access to without the private landowners. So that allows us to incentivize the local landowners to work with us. It gives them reimbursement on some of the work that they do, and allows us to turn regular parking lots into porous pavement parking lots, add cisterns to basements, and a variety of other things, green roofs. Again, we'll address some of those technologies and infrastructure in a slide or two down the line. Save the Rain in the Schools, again, part of our outreach program, as our partnerships, Baltimore Woods, the Most, Earth Corps, Cornell Cooperative Extension. These are some of the entities that we've worked with, public and private, through the years to advance our message and inform the public about our goals and our practices. So as a result of all this, what we had hoped for and what we've seen is a remarkable recovery in the health of the Onondaga Lake watershed, both its tributaries and the body of water, the lake itself. So we're seeing quality that's really the best it's been in over a century, which is fantastic and tells us that what we're doing is working. So we see a combination of the green and the gray infrastructure technologies being highlighted by the Save the Rain program, and what we've seen since its inception is the implementation of well over 200 green infrastructure projects That number's going up sometimes even monthly. We've got several projects in the works right now. We've seen several over the past year, and have more on the books for next year and the years to come. We've seen over 98% of the CSO capture that we've been looking for achieved, which equates to close to 200 million gallons captured annually, which is a lot. So green infrastructure we've been talking about, and you might wonder, how do we define that? And this is how a couple of organizations define it, as you know, projects that draw from nature as inspiration, and you know, a design template for stormwater management. You know, we look to the way that it's accomplished in the natural world when it's not impacted by human interventions and the impervious surfaces that our cityscapes and urban landscapes and suburban landscapes often give rise to. That disrupts that natural mitigation of stormwater flows in a natural environment. So the EPA defines it in that way, you know, delivering those three, that triple bottom line effect of environmental, social, and economic benefits, and treating stormwater at its source, again, as opposed to a treatment facility handling those flows at a cost to the taxpayers and wear and tear on the equipment. So some examples of green infrastructure. We have bioretention basins, rain gardens, bioswales. You may see some of these around various area parks in and around the city of Syracuse. Several of our libraries feature green infrastructure, rain gardens, or bioswales and the like. You can see in the diagram up top where the water is coming in and infiltrating the ground, and therefore, you know, re-entering the water table, or in some instances entering the sewer, but at a much lower rate, so as not to overwhelm the system. I mentioned some of the rain barrels in terms of what the public can do with us and for us. The rain barrels, cisterns, I had alluded to certain businesses working with us on the Green Improvement Fund and through other means to incorporate cisterns, so they're capturing and reusing some of that water. Most notably, I'd say the Onondaga County War Memorial and the hockey rink for the Syracuse Crunch are supplied with water from rainwater when nature allows. So tree plantings also factor into this. You'll see them in some of our green corridor projects or green streets projects, not in the upcoming one on West Genesee. We'll be using some trenches that we'll also talk about in that particular instance, but often where we can, we'll incorporate these as both a functional and aesthetic upgrade to the environment. You can see some of our partners at Onondaga Earth Corps working with community members on the right to install some trees as green infrastructure on park properties. On the left, you see some of the more urban landscape incorporations and what we call silvacells, or what the industry calls silvacells, which allow for structural integrity below the trees, but still allow for some room for the trees to grow. Green roofs, kind of one of the more I think emblematic of green infrastructure technologies. Something that's just kind of big and in your face, if you can see it from above, that is. But a dramatic example of green infrastructure. You know, using large impervious elevated surfaces to function as stormwater capture. Here's a bunch of them side by side, some examples of stuff that we've done right here in the city. And then again, some partners of ours from Onondaga Earth Corps focusing on tree planting up top. You see some of the porous pavement down in the bottom left that we've done around the city in city parks, notably basketball courts. Done some projects with Jim Boeheim, the Courts for Kids program, So really just working with a variety of partners around the city to implement these technologies in innovative ways and ways that benefit the community and save tax dollars. Again, part of that triple bottom line approach to economic, environmental, social. And here are a number of these projects plotted on a GIS map, an interactive map that you can actually access through our website, where you can find a variety of other pieces of information about the program as well. So that's the program in a nutshell. I think now we'll move forward to the actual project that brings us here itself, the West Genesee project. And for that, I will hand over the reins to our technical consultant designer on this project to describe the merits, both the merits and the details of the project. And that would be Zach Monge from Jacobs, and I will hand it over to Zach.
Thanks, Jed. Yep, Zach Monge from Jacobs here. I'm going to talk about the project specifically, and we'll start with why are we doing a project on West Genesee Street. So the program's predicated on two real things, at least these days, is capturing as much volume as possible, managing as much stormwater volume as possible, and partnering with other entities to lower our overall costs, and which is why we're doing West Genesee Street. So first off, the street is located in one of our highest discharging CSO basins, or one of our highest discharging areas, which is CSO 066 is the nomenclature. This basin discharges on an average 16 times a year with over 5 million gallons of discharge into Onondaga Creek. West Genesee Street is a very impervious area. As John mentioned, Automobile Row, lots of parking lots that drain into the street. The street alone is a 4-lane road, 2 lanes in each direction, so lots of stormwater volume capture available for us. And the third item here, the city has a planned mill and pave of West Genesee Street using federal funds in the next coming years and next couple of years. So all these reasons, high stormwater capture volume in an area that's high priority for us, and because the city is already planning on milling and paving West Genesee Street in the near-term future, are all the reasons why we looked at doing a project on this street. So as I mentioned, CSO 066, so you can see the outline here in the grayish color. West Genesee Street, right down the center, or a little more north of the center, I should say, is where we have the project we're doing here, or talking about here today. You can see it's a large area, but West Genesee Street is definitely the most highly impervious area where we can capture the most volume overall compared to some of the other areas within the project. So we already got a number of other projects that have been completed in these areas. Leavenworth and Barker Parks near Middle Ages Brewing. We did those back in 2014 with the biospills around the edge of the park, a porous pavement basketball court at Barker Park, and a rain garden at Barker Park. That's a very large project for us that captures over 1 million gallons of stormwater. And then there's some private projects that we have, the Green Improvement Fund, which is our private funded projects. Zip Networks and Auto Real Realty have some porous pavement parking lot projects that have also been completed within this project area. So we've done some other green infrastructure in this area historically, but none to the scale of this West Genesee Street project. So the limits of the project are from Geddes Street to Plum Street. And as I mentioned, significant volume capture, over 8 million gallons of stormwater runoff reduced annually. That is significant. That's one of our largest green streets in the entire program of over 200 projects. And as I mentioned, the city's repaving the street. They'll be doing that after we're done with the project to give a nice clean finish to the street and after all work is done. So here's a more closer look up at the project. As Geddes Street's off on the left side, and Plum Street's off on the right side, and then we've got the better part of 2 or 3 blocks, or 3 or 4 blocks, I should say, depending on how you look at it, of projects that we're doing our green infrastructure on. So just to give you an idea of what we're doing here, so this is what it looks like currently. 4-lane road, 2 lanes in each direction. This is between Geddes and Plum. This is consistently like this. There's some trees in the right of way on both sides. So what we're planning on doing is installing a series of underground infiltration trenches. And this is shown very schematically, but the underground infiltration trenches, which I have some photos of in a little bit, are fully underground, as the name suggests. It's just stone storage with pipe And those street catch basins, which you can see here, I sketched one in black just to kind of identify them. Currently, they're all plumbed to the combined sewer. We will replumb these into our green infrastructure systems and our underground infiltration trenches and capture the stormwater that runs off the street underground in these areas. And all these systems also have overflows back to the combined sewer system. So if we get a huge storm event that is much larger than we designed for it, we do have safe overflow back to the sewer system to manage the storm water accordingly. As I mentioned, I got a bunch of photos here of previous projects with underground infiltration trenches. They're rather simple technology. You have the fabric or the paper, which is in black here. This one here on the left shows it best. Then you have stone. We have our underdrain, our conveyance pipe, which brings the water to and from the system. And then stone again, right to the top of the surface. And then the paper is folded over the top. And then the street gets rebuilt above that, which you can see here in the upper photograph. This is from a previous project on West Colvin Street on the south side of the city, but same general technology. And then in this case, when the city does their mill and pave after our project, there'll be a completely new street surface on the entirety of the street. So just kind of wrap things up here, targeting schedule. Looking at construction late in 2021, likely working block by block. The specifics of this are going to be determined. We probably will do one side of the street, like the south side or the north side of the street first. There's a total of 9 infiltration trenches on the project. But about half and half are on the north side of the block, or the north side of the street, I should say, where westbound traffic is, and half are on the east side of the street where the eastbound traffic is. And well, the specifics of this will work out with our contractor, but nonetheless, construction is targeted to start this year and complete this year by the end of the year. We will have, again, more community meetings prior to construction and before construction, just updating folks on what the plan is more specifically as we get closer. And we'll also have additional outreach to stakeholder businesses as we need to keep people posted. And with that, our contact information for both Chad and myself is here, and we can follow up from there.
Yep. And in the absence of any questions, we'll wrap up. And again, you can contact either Zach or myself with any additional questions or need of additional details. And we will be keeping you apprised as we go. As Zach said, we will do more of these, have more scheduled at different milestones of advancement toward the project, especially in the run up to the actual construction. We'll keep you apprised of our schedule and timeline. So if you have any questions, reach out to us, and we will try to keep the public alerted to any developments through social media, through our website, and in some cases through boots on the ground outreach efforts and flyering, as we did for this. Thank you very much. I appreciate your help, Zach, and we will talk with some of you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.